The morning air had a bite to it as Lily Parker pulled into the gravel parking lot of Highland Shooting Range. She was early, as usual. The clock on her dashboard read 7:42 a.m., and the range didn't officially open until 8, but Mike, the owner, always let her in early. A creature of habit, Lily had been coming here every Saturday morning for the past 4 years. She killed the engine of her faded blue Honda and sat for a moment, letting the quiet wash over her. This weekly ritual was her escape from spreadsheets and client meetings that filled her weekdays as an accountant at Thompson & Associates. Here it was just her thoughts, and the focus required to hit a target consistently at varying distances. No office politics. No deadlines. No pretending to be interested in Carol's endless stories about her grandchildren. Lily grabbed her range bag from the passenger seat, the canvas worn smooth from years of use. The weight of it was comforting as she slung it over her shoulder. Nothing fancy inside, just her Glock 19, hearing protection, safety glasses, and a box of ammunition. She wasn't a gun enthusiast with an arsenal at home. She owned exactly one firearm, practiced regularly, and kept it properly secured. It was about competence, not obsession. Mike was sweeping the entrance when she approached. His gray beard had more white in it than when she'd first started coming here, but his eyes still had the same warmth. "Morning, Lily," he called out, propping his broom against the wall. "Coffee's already on if you want some." "Morning." "Thanks, but I brought my own today," she replied, lifting her travel mug slightly. The truth was, Mike's coffee tasted like it had been filtered through an old sock, but she'd never tell him that. The range was empty, just how she liked it. In an hour or so, the weekend warriors would start trickling in, mostly guys with expensive gear they barely knew how to use, treating the place like a social club. By then, she'd be finished and on her way to her next Saturday ritual, grocery shopping at Wilson's Market, followed by lunch at the diner where she always ordered the Turkey Club. Lily signed in, wrote her name in her neat, precise handwriting, and headed to Lane 7, her lane. Not officially, of course, but the regulars knew. She set her bag down and began her routine, safety glasses on, hearing protection around her neck, ready to be pulled up. She unzipped her light jacket but kept it on for now. The range was still chilly. Taking her time, she removed her pistol from its case, verified it was unloaded, and placed it carefully on the shooting bench. There was comfort in the routine, in the methodical steps that never changed. Check and double check. Safety first, always. She pinned up a fresh target and sent it out to 15 yards using the electronic pulley system. Not too close, not too far, a good warm-up distance. Lily loaded the magazine with practiced efficiency, each round sliding into place with a satisfying click. As she prepared to begin her session, her mind wandered briefly to the stack of tax returns waiting for her review on her home office desk. April 15th was approaching and the office was swamped. Her boss, Tom, had hinted at a promotion last week, mentioning how her attention to detail hadn't gone unnoticed. 10 years at the same firm, moving steadily if unspectacularly up the ladder. She pushed those thoughts away. This was her time. She inserted the magazine, racked the slide, raised her arms into her stance, and took a deep breath. The world narrowed to just her and the target. She squeezed the trigger. The first shot hit just left of center. Not perfect, but not bad. She adjusted slightly and fired again. Better. By the third shot, she had found her rhythm. She emptied the magazine in a steady cadence, each shot deliberate. When she brought the target back in, the grouping was tight, all within the inner rings. Not bad for someone who'd learned to shoot relatively late in life at 31. Now at 35, she wasn't going to win any competitions, but she was competent. That was all she wanted to be. "Nice grouping," came a voice from behind her. Lily turned to see Darren, another regular. He was a retired high school physics teacher who came in most weekends. "Thanks," she said, changing out the target for a fresh one. "How's the shoulder today?" He'd been complaining about rotator cuff problems for months. "Better. That physical therapist you recommended worked wonders," he replied, setting up his equipment 2 lanes over. "You know, for someone who claims to just be a hobbyist, you shoot better than half the folks who brag about their skills." Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with the compliment. Just practice. By 8:30, more people had filtered in. The rhythmic popping of gunfire created a strange percussion throughout the range. Lily was on her third target, this time at 20 yards, when something unusual happened. Her routine was interrupted. The heavy door to the range swung open and a group of 3 men walked in. 2 were ordinary enough. middle-aged with the confident stride of law enforcement or military. But the third man caught her attention. Tall, with close-cropped hair that had started graying at the temples, he moved with the quiet alertness of someone who had seen combat. His eyes scanned the room automatically, taking in exits, people, potential threats. It was an unconscious habit she recognized because she caught herself doing the same thing in crowded places. Lily turned back to her target, ignoring the newcomers. Not her business. She raised her pistol again, focused, and fired 3 more rounds. As she lowered her arms to check her grouping, she noticed the tall man had taken the lane at the far end of the range. He was efficiently unpacking a case that contained what looked like a Sig Sauer, though she couldn't be sure from this distance. She sent her target out to 25 yards now, challenging herself. The range had gotten busier, with most lanes filled. The familiar sounds and smells surrounded her. Gunpowder, the mechanical clicks of weapons being handled, the occasional muffled conversation between shots. Time slipped away as it always did here. The world outside faded and all her focus narrowed to her breath, her stance, the feel of the trigger under her finger. This was why she came week after week. These moments of complete concentration cleared her mind like nothing else could. After almost an hour, Lily decided to finish up. She had completed her usual routine and was satisfied with her performance. She began packing her equipment, wiping down her pistol before securing it in its case. The range was now crowded, mostly with weekend shooters who came once a month at best. Their enthusiasm made up for what they lacked in skill or discipline. As she zipped up her range bag, she noticed the tall man was now standing near the front desk, talking with Mike. They seemed to know each other, or at least to have mutual acquaintances by the way they were speaking. She couldn't hear their conversation over the sound of gunfire, but she could read the ease in their body language. Lily shrugged off her jacket as she prepared to leave. The range had warmed up with all the bodies inside, and besides, her car was just a short walk away. As she passed by the front desk, nodding a goodbye to Mike, she noticed the tall man's eyes flick toward her, then away, then back again with sudden intensity. His conversation with Mike stopped mid-sentence. She felt a moment of unease under his scrutiny but kept walking. She wasn't in the habit of engaging with strangers, especially men who stared, but as she pushed open the door to the parking lot, she heard rapid footsteps behind her. "Excuse me?" the man called out, his voice carrying a note of authority that made her pause despite her better judgment. Lily turned, one hand still on the door. "Yes?" The man was closer now and she could see his eyes clearly, alert and intelligent with the weathered lines around them that came from years squinting in harsh sunlight. Military, almost certainly. There was an intensity to his gaze that made her instinctively take half a step back. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his tone deliberately casual now, though his eyes remained fixed on her forearm where her sleeve had written up. "I just couldn't help but notice your tattoo." Lily glanced down at the small, intricate design on her inner forearm. The simple black lines formed a pattern most people mistook for a stylized compass rose. It wasn't large or particularly eye-catching. Most days she forgot it was even there. "What about it?" she asked, her voice cooling. She didn't owe explanations to strangers. The man looked around quickly, checking who might be within earshot. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to barely above a whisper, and the words sent a chill through her body despite the morning sun now warming the parking lot. "That tattoo isn't supposed to exist." Lily's throat went dry. 5 words, and just like that, her carefully constructed world threatened to come undone. She tugged her sleeve down reflexively, covering the tattoo. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," she said, forcing a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. She turned to leave, but the man stepped sideways, not blocking her path completely but making it clear he wasn't finished. "Look," he said, his voice still low, "I'm not here to cause trouble. My name is Jack Reynolds, former Navy SEAL Team 6. He paused, watching her reaction closely. "That symbol? I've only seen it in one place, and those files were classified well above my pay grade." Lily glanced around the parking lot. It was relatively empty, just a few cars scattered across the gravel. No one was within earshot, but they were very much in public view. Her mind raced through options, calculating risks like she'd been trained to do years ago. "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction now. Something in his eyes told her he wasn't guessing. He knew. Jack sighed, running a hand over his short hair. "I understand your caution. But those markings, they're connected to Operation Blackbriar. And if you have that tattoo, you need to hear what I know. The name hit her like a physical blow. Blackbriar, a name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in nearly a decade, a name that belonged to her past life, the one she'd walked away from and buried deep. Not here, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks east. The Hidden Bean. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Without waiting for his response, she walked briskly to her car. Once inside, with the doors locked, Lily allowed herself 10 seconds. 10 seconds of pure panic. Her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then, just as she'd been trained, she compartmentalized the fear, tucking it away where it couldn't cloud her judgment. She started the car and pulled out of the lot, checking her rearview mirror repeatedly. The Hidden Bean was a small, independent coffee shop that offered the twin advantages of privacy and multiple exits. Lily arrived first, deliberately choosing a corner table with her back to the wall and a clear view of both the front door and the side exit that led to the alley. She ordered a black coffee she had no intention of drinking. Jack arrived exactly 17 minutes after their parking lot conversation. He scanned the cafe with practiced efficiency before approaching her table. She noticed he'd changed his shirt, probably had a spare in his car. Smart. If someone had seen them talking at the range and followed, the different clothing might buy them a few precious moments of confusion. He sat across from her, placing his own cup of coffee on the table between them like a peace offering. I appreciate you meeting with me, he began. You mentioned Blackbriar, Lily cut in. Not interested in pleasantries. Start there, Jack nodded, accepting her directness. I was deployed in Syria 4 years ago. Our team extracted a high-value target, a scientist. During debrief, he mentioned Blackbriar as part of a list of classified operations. Most meant nothing to me, but that one got a reaction from the intelligence officers. The kind of reaction that tells you something's above your clearance. Lily remained silent, her face deliberately blank. 2 months later, I'm stateside, consulting on a training exercise with some intelligence folks. I see a file. Just for a split second it had your symbol on it. The same one. He gestured toward her covered forearm. When I asked about it, the file disappeared, and so did the person who had been carrying it. That doesn't explain why you approached me, Lily said. Jack leaned forward slightly. 3 weeks ago, a former teammate contacted me. Dave Holloway. He'd been working private security after leaving the teams. One of his clients was a woman with the same tattoo. She was killed execution style. Dave started asking questions. 2 days later, his boat exploded with him on it. A chill ran down Lily's spine. And you think these events are connected? I know they are, Jack replied with absolute certainty. After Dave died, I started digging. Found mentions of 2 other deaths in the past 6 months. Both had your tattoo. Both ruled as accidents or robberies gone wrong. Lily took a slow, controlled breath. Her mind was working overtime, connecting dots she'd been ignoring for years. Someone's cleaning house, she said quietly. Jack nodded. That's my theory. And seeing you today, I couldn't just walk away. Not if you're in danger. Lily studied him carefully. He seemed sincere, but in her former life she'd met plenty of people who could fake sincerity perfectly. She'd been one of them. How do I know you're not part of the cleanup crew? She asked bluntly. A hint of a smile touched Jack's lips. Fair question. If I were, we wouldn't be having coffee. You would have never seen me coming. There was truth in that. Professional killers don't announce themselves. Still, caution had kept her alive this long. What do you want from me? She asked. Information, he replied simply. I need to understand what Blackbriar was. Why these people are being targeted now after all this time. Lily laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're asking me to tell you about an operation so classified that people are apparently being killed to keep it buried. Why would I do that? Because you're next on the list, Jack said flatly. And right now I might be the only person who knows you exist who isn't trying to erase you. The silence between them stretched uncomfortably. Through the cafe window, Lily watched people passing by. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. For a moment she felt a stab of envy. She'd worked so hard to become one of them. I haven't been involved with any of that. For 10 years, she finally said. I'm an accountant. I file tax returns and help small businesses manage their finances. That's my life now. But it wasn't always. Jack pressed gently. Lily's gaze drifted to her coffee cup. No, it wasn't always. Another pause. Then, what did you say your full name was? Jack Reynolds. She pulled out her phone and quickly typed the name. She scrolled through results, then looked back up at him. There's quite a bit about you online. Bronze Star recipient. Honorable discharge in 2020. Founded a security consulting firm that specializes in maritime protection. She set her phone down. Either you're exactly who you say you are, or someone created a very thorough cover story. Both could be true, Jack pointed out. Lily almost smiled at that. Yes, both could be true. She weighed her options. If he was telling the truth, others with her tattoo were being systematically eliminated. If he was lying, well, she'd survived worse odds before. I can't talk here, she decided. Too public. Your place? Jack suggested. Lily shook her head immediately. No, neutral ground. She thought for a moment. There's a state park about 30 minutes from here. Hiking trails. This time of year on a weekday it'll be nearly empty. Jack nodded. Works for me. We take separate cars. I'll follow you. No, Lily countered. I'll text you the location. You go first, find a spot near the east trailhead. I'll make sure I'm not followed before I join you. A look of respect crossed Jack's face. You've done this before. A lifetime ago, she replied, already standing to leave. She recited her phone number for him to enter into his contacts. 1 hour. If anything feels wrong, I won't show. Understood, Jack said, remaining seated as she prepared to leave. Another professional courtesy, creating distance between them in case someone was watching. As Lily walked to the door, she felt as though invisible threads were pulling her backward through time, back to the person she used to be, Rebecca Harlow. That had been her name then. Agent Harlow. The weight of the past settled on her shoulders like a familiar, unwelcome burden. She stepped outside, instantly scanning her surroundings out of habit. Nothing seemed out of place, but a prickling sensation at the back of her neck wouldn't subside. The feeling of being watched. As she walked to her car, Rebecca now, whether she wanted it or not, considered the possibility that Jack Reynolds was telling the truth. That someone was methodically hunting down everyone associated with Blackbriar. If so, her peaceful existence as Lily Parker was already over. The only question was whether she would survive what came next. She slid into her car, checked the backseat, an old habit she'd never quite shaken, and started the engine. As she pulled away from the curb, her mind was already shifting. Neural pathways that had lain dormant for a decade reactivating. Assessing threats, plotting contingencies, planning escape routes. The quiet accountant was falling away, like a mask she'd worn for so long she'd almost forgotten it wasn't her real face. Beneath it was someone harder, sharper, someone who had once moved through shadows and secrets with lethal efficiency, someone who had run once before, and lived. The question now was whether she could do it again. The winding road to Oak Ridge State Park gave Rebecca time to think. With each mile that took her further from town, memories surfaced like long submerged wreckage finally rising to the light. She drove 5 miles past the park entrance, pulled into a gas station, and waited 15 minutes. No cars lingered. No one watched. She doubled back, taking a service road that park rangers used, which connected to the main parking area near the east trailhead. Old habits. Necessary precautions. Jack's dark blue pickup was the only vehicle in the lot. He leaned against the hood, looking like any other hiker enjoying the crisp fall day. But Rebecca noted how his posture allowed him a clear view of all approaching routes, how his right hand stayed casually close to his waistband, where she suspected a weapon was holstered. She parked 2 spaces away and stepped out, leaving her keys in the ignition. Another old habit, always be ready to run. You came, Jack said, straightening up. There was a note of relief in his voice. I almost didn't, Rebecca admitted. They stood there for a moment, 2 strangers bound by dangerous knowledge, sizing each other up. The parking lot was surrounded by tall pines that swayed gently in the breeze, their needles creating a soft, constant whisper. In the distance, birds called to one another. There's a trail that loops around the lake, Jack said, breaking the silence. About 3 miles total. Should give us enough time to talk. Rebecca nodded, and they fell into step beside each other on the narrow dirt path. For the first few minutes, neither spoke. The trail descended through a grove of oak trees, their leaves turning golden and red with the coming of fall. You said you've been out for 10 years, Jack finally said. That means you left right after Caracas. Rebecca stopped walking. How do you know about Caracas? I told you I've been digging. After Dave was killed, I called in every favor I had. Pieced things together from fragments, mission reports, redacted files, rumors. Caracas was when it all went sideways, wasn't it? When Blackbriar got shut down. She started walking again, more briskly now. Blackbriar wasn't shut down. It was buried. There's a difference. Tell me, Jack pressed gently. Rebecca took a deep breath. The scent of pine and damp earth filled her lungs. For a decade, she'd never spoken of these things. Had trained herself to forget. Blackbriar wasn't an operation, she began. It was a program. Highly specialized intelligence officers with enhanced capabilities. She touched her forearm unconsciously where the tattoo lay hidden beneath her sleeve. Enhanced how? Jack asked. We were the best of the best, pulled from every agency, CIA, DIA, NSA, even some foreign services. But being selected was just the beginning. Her voice grew distant, remembering. The training was beyond anything that officially exists. Psychological conditioning, specialized medical treatments, experimental tech. They remade us. They walked in silence for a moment as Jack absorbed this. The tattoo, he said finally. It's not just identification, is it? Rebecca shook her head. It contains nanomaterial embedded in the ink. Microscopic tech that interfaces with the modifications they made to us. It's how handlers could track us, monitor vital signs, even administer certain compounds remotely if needed. Jack's eyebrows rose. That sounds like science fiction? Rebecca gave a bitter laugh. The public has no idea how far ahead certain programs are. What you see in military applications today was developed in black sites 20 years ago. They reached a wooden footbridge that crossed a narrow part of the lake. Rebecca stopped midway, looking out over the still water. A fish jumped, creating ripples that spread outward in perfect circles. What happened in Caracas? Jack asked quietly. Rebecca gripped the wooden railing. We were sent to extract a scientist, Dr. Victor Chen. He had been developing next-generation neural interface technology for the Chinese government, but wanted to defect. At least that's what we were told. But that wasn't true? No, Chen wasn't a defector. He was a bargaining chip. Someone high up in our government was using Blackbriar assets for personal gain, selling our services to the highest bidder. Chen had developed something valuable and someone wanted it. Rebecca's knuckles whitened on the railing. The extraction went bad. Civilian casualties. My team, she stopped, swallowing hard. I was the only one who made it out. And I had questions. The kind of questions that get people like us killed. Jack remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. Instead of returning to base, I went dark. Used every trick I knew to disappear. I tracked down information, put pieces together. Found out Chen's research wasn't weapons tech like we'd been told. He was developing memory enhancement, ways to improve recall, but also ways to selectively remove memories. Jack's eyes narrowed. Why would that be worth killing for? Think about it, Rebecca said. Selective memory modification for intelligence officers. The perfect way to control your assets. Send them on unsanctioned operations, then wipe those specific memories. Create deniable operators who don't even know what they've done. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. The perfect assassins. They wouldn't even know they were assassins, Rebecca nodded. Exactly. And the program director, Thomas Harding, was planning to sell this tech to private military contractors. Billions of dollars at stake. What did you do with this information? Rebecca turned away from the lake view, continuing along the trail. I compiled everything I had, names, dates, bank transfers. I was going to blow it all open. But before I could, someone tipped off Harding. He sent a team after me. Her voice grew harder. I survived. They didn't. And I realized I couldn't go public. Harding's connections went too high. So I did the next best thing. I made a deal with his biggest rival in the intelligence community. Handed over all my evidence in exchange for a new identity and a promise to shut Blackbriar down. And you've been living as Lily Parker. Boring accountant. Model citizen. A humorless smile touched her lips. I thought it was over. They walked in silence for a while, the trail curving around the lakeshore. A family of ducks paddled near the water's edge, the mother leading a line of ducklings. If Blackbriar was shut down, Jack said carefully, why are former members being killed now 10 years later? Rebecca had been asking herself the same question since their coffee shop conversation. Something must have changed. Maybe Harding is tying up loose ends. Or maybe what? Maybe they're restarting the program. The thought sent ice through her veins. The technology exists. The research didn't just disappear. Jack stopped walking, his expression troubled. That still doesn't explain the timing. Why now after all these years? Rebecca considered this. What else have you learned about the other victims? Not much. A woman named Catherine Willis found dead in her apartment in Boston 6 months ago. Apparent robbery gone wrong. A man named Peter Zhao. Car accident in Seattle 4 months ago. And most recently, Alan Dawson drowning in Miami ruled accidental. Rebecca froze. Repeat those names. Jack looked puzzled but complied. Catherine Willis, Peter Zhao, Alan Dawson. And they all had the tattoo? According to my sources, yes. Rebecca's mind raced. Kite, Patriot, Arrow. At Jack's confused look, she explained. Our code names. I was whisper. They're killing us in the order we were recruited. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. If there's a pattern, we can predict who's next. Rebecca shook her head. It's not that simple. After Caracas, everyone scattered. New identities. Only a handful of people would know both our real names and our Blackbriar code names. Harding would, Jack pointed out. Yes, and whoever is helping him. Rebecca started walking faster, her mind working through possibilities. If they're following recruitment order, there would be 2 more before me. Cypher and Echo. They had almost completed the loop, the parking lot visible through the trees ahead. Rebecca stopped suddenly, grabbing Jack's arm. Your friend Dave, the one with the client who was killed. Did he ever mention her name? Jack thought for a moment. Louise something. Louise Bennett, I think. Rebecca's face paled. That's Catherine Willis. She must have changed her name too. And Dave knew her. Which means they're tracking connections, Jack finished her thought. Finding one of you leads to the others. The implication hung heavy between them. By meeting today, they had potentially created a link that could be followed. We should go, Rebecca said, suddenly urgent. Being together in public isn't safe. They hurried back to the parking lot, a new tension between them. What's your plan? Jack asked as they reached their vehicles. Rebecca ran a hand through her hair, mind racing through scenarios. I need to warn the others if I can find them. And I need to figure out who's behind this. Harding or someone new. I can help, Jack said firmly. My security firm has resources. Rebecca studied him, weighing risk against necessity. Finally, she nodded. Give me your phone. He handed it over, and she quickly created a new contact with a number that wasn't her everyday phone. Burner phone, she explained, returning his device. I'll contact you tomorrow with a secure meeting location. Don't call unless it's an emergency. Jack nodded, understanding. Be careful. I've stayed alive this long, Rebecca replied with grim confidence. As she drove away, leaving the park and Jack behind, Rebecca's mind was already shifting into operational mode. She would need supplies, cash, weapons. Her go-bag was still in the false bottom of her hallway closet, untouched for 10 years but ready. Lily Parker might have been a simple woman who enjoyed weekend trips to the shooting range, but Rebecca Harlow had been one of the deadliest intelligence operatives ever created, and after a decade of dormancy, that part of her was awakening again. The quiet life she had built was ending. The hunt had begun. Rebecca drove straight home, fighting the urge to check her rearview mirror every few seconds. Old instincts warred with the habits of civilian life she'd cultivated over the past decade. She forced herself to drive normally. No sudden turns, no changing speeds, nothing that would draw attention. Her small ranch-style house on Maple Street looked exactly as she'd left it that morning. The newspaper still lay on the front step. Mrs. Wilson next door was watering her roses just like she did every Saturday afternoon. Everything appeared normal, which only heightened Rebecca's suspicion. In her experience, normal was often the most carefully constructed illusion. She parked in the driveway, waved casually to Mrs. Wilson, and collected her mail along with the newspaper, maintaining appearances. Inside, she locked the door and immediately went to work. First, she checked her security system, a custom setup she'd installed herself, far more sophisticated than the average home alarm. No breaches detected. Next, she pulled out her laptop and began searching for information on the 3 names Jack had mentioned. Catherine Willis, Peter Zhao, and Alan Dawson. Their deaths, separated by time and geography, had been reported as unrelated incidents. Only someone looking for connections would see the pattern, but Rebecca needed more. She needed to find the others, specifically Cypher and Echo, the two who would be targeted before her if the pattern held. Their real names had been compartmentalized. During operations, they had only known each other by code names. It was a safety measure, but now it was an obstacle. After an hour of searching news reports and public records, she sat back, frustrated. This wouldn't work. She needed resources she no longer had access to. The hallway closet called to her. With a deep breath, Rebecca crossed the room and opened it. Pushing aside coats and shoes, she knelt down and pried up a section of floorboard that appeared no different from the rest. Beneath it lay a metal box, her insurance policy, untouched for 10 years. Inside was everything she might need to disappear again: $20,000 in cash, 3 different passports under different names, a prepaid phone, and a Glock 26, smaller than her usual range weapon but more easily concealed. The sight of these items brought a rush of memories, not all of them pleasant. Rebecca took the phone and the cash, hesitated, then took the gun as well. Better to have it and not need it. She called Jack from the burner phone standing by her kitchen window where she could see anyone approaching the house. "It's me," she said when he answered. "Can you talk?" "Yes, are you all right?" "For now, but I need help finding the others. I don't have the resources I used to." Jack was quiet for a moment. "I might. My security firm handles digital investigations. What do you need?" "Information on anyone matching the profile, former intelligence, dropped off the grid around 10 years ago, possibly with unexplained deaths near them in the past. That's not much to go on. It's all we have." Rebecca watched a car drive slowly past her house, then continue down the street. Just a neighbor, she told herself. Start with these locations: Denver, Phoenix, Portland. They were fallback cities we discussed once if things went bad. All right, I'll put my team on it discreetly. What's your next move? Rebecca considered her options. I need to disappear for a while. If they're looking for Lily Parker, I shouldn't make it easy for them. You have somewhere to go? Yes. She had planned for this possibility, even if she'd hoped it would never come. But first I need to make a stop. There's someone who might know more about why this is happening now. Who? An old contact. Someone who was never officially part of Blackbriar, but knew about it. He's been out of the game even longer than I have. Rebecca glanced at her watch. I'll contact you tomorrow, same time. Be careful who you trust with this, Jack. Always am. Watch your back. The call ended and Rebecca moved quickly. She packed a small bag with essentials, then went to her home office. To anyone else, it would look like she was simply preparing client tax files for the coming week. In reality, she was gathering the few pieces of evidence she'd kept about her former life. Insurance against the day when the past might catch up with her. Within 30 minutes, Rebecca had transformed her appearance. Hair pulled back severely, glasses, clothing that would help her blend into crowds. Nothing dramatic, just enough to break the pattern recognition of anyone who might be looking for Lily Parker. She was just about to leave when her regular phone rang. The caller ID showed Thompson & Associates, her accounting firm. With a moment's hesitation, she answered. Hello? Lily, it's Tom. Her boss sounded concerned. Sorry to bother you on the weekend, but something strange happened. 2 men were here asking questions about you. Said they were from the IRS, but their credentials seemed off to me. Rebecca's pulse quickened. What kind of questions? Background stuff mostly. How long you've worked here, your client list. I told them they'd need a proper subpoena before I'd discuss any of my employees. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Thanks, Tom, I appreciate that. She kept her voice calm, professional. Did they leave cards or say they'd be back? No cards, but they did say they might contact you directly. All right, if they return, please let me know. After hanging up, Rebecca moved with new urgency. They were already looking for her. The hunting had begun. She left through the back door, cutting through her neighbor's yard and several others before, circling back to a side street where she'd parked a car registered under another name years ago, AE. Precaution that had seemed paranoid at the time but now felt prescient 2 hours later. Rebecca pulled into the parking lot of a retirement community in a small town 40 miles away. Golden Pines was a peaceful place where affluent seniors lived out their days playing golf and bridge. It was the last place anyone would look for a connection to a classified intelligence program. At the front desk, she signed in as Lisa Morgan, visiting her uncle. The receptionist barely glanced at her before waving her through. Room 214 was at the end of a quiet hallway. Rebecca knocked softly. "Come in," called a gravelly voice. The man who sat by the window watching birds at a feeder outside bore little resemblance to the person Rebecca had known. Walter Klein had once been the CIA's deputy director of operations, a kingmaker in the intelligence world. Now he was an 80-year-old with thinning white hair and liver spots on his hands. But his eyes, those hadn't changed. Sharp, assessing, missing nothing. "I wondered when you might show up," he said, not turning from the window. "Been watching the news. 3 accidents in 6 months. Not very subtle." Rebecca closed the door behind her. "You knew I'd make the connection?" "I hoped someone would." Now he turned to look at her. "You look well. Civilian life suits you." "It did," she corrected. "Until this morning. Someone's hunting Blackbriar operatives, Walter." "In order of recruitment," he nodded slowly. "And you want to know why now, after all these years?" "That would be a start." Walter gestured to the chair opposite him. As Rebecca sat, he reached for a remote control and turned up the volume on a white noise machine in the corner. Another precaution that didn't seem paranoid to either of them. "Thomas Harding died 3 months ago," Walter said without preamble. "Cancer. Fast and aggressive." Rebecca absorbed this. "So this isn't his doing?" "No, but his death set things in motion. There was a secure storage facility in Virginia, access limited to Harding alone. After his death, certain parties became very interested in its contents." "Blackbriar files?" Walter's expression was grim. "More than files, samples, research, everything from the program that wasn't destroyed." A chill ran through Rebecca. Chen's memory tech, among other things. The kind of research that could restart the program. Or sell to the highest bidder. Rebecca leaned forward. "Who has access now?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Walter reached for a glass of water on the side table, his hand trembling slightly with age. "Officially, everything was transferred to a secure government facility. Unofficially," he shrugged, "items may have gone missing during transport. And someone's eliminating everyone who might recognize what they're looking at if that technology resurfaces," Rebecca concluded, "or everyone who might be able to stop them from using it." Walter fixed her with an intense gaze. "There were only 13 of you who received the full treatment. The complete neural modifications, only 13 who would understand exactly what that technology could do in the wrong hands." Rebecca stood, pacing the small room. "I need names, Walter." "Cypher and Echo, who were they?" Walter shook his head. "I never had access to the personnel files. That was Harding's domain. But I do know this. There's someone else looking into Harding's death and the missing materials. Someone official." "Who?" "Deputy Director Robert Chen, FBI Counterintelligence." Rebecca froze. "Chen? Any relation to Victor Chen's son?" Walter nodded. "He's been quietly investigating his father's work for years, trying to understand what really happened." This was a complication Rebecca hadn't anticipated. "Can he be trusted?" "In my experience, the most trustworthy people are those with a personal stake. He wants justice, not power." Walter reached for a notepad on the table beside him, wrote something down and handed it to her. "That's his secure line. Direct access, no assistance." Rebecca pocketed the paper. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Walter's expression darkened. "Whoever is behind this has resources, connections. They're not just hunting Blackbriar operatives. They're erasing every trace the program ever existed. Which means anyone connected to it is at risk," Rebecca realized, "including you." Walter smiled thinly. "I'm 80 years old with congestive heart failure. They don't need to bother with me." Rebecca wasn't convinced. "All the same, be careful." As she turned to leave, Walter called after her. "Rebecca." She looked back. "The modifications you received, the neural enhancements. Have you experienced any side effects over the years?" She hesitated, then admitted, "Dreams. Memories that don't feel like mine. Moments of knowing things I shouldn't know." Walter nodded, unsurprised. The technology was never meant to be permanent. It was designed to be monitored, adjusted. After 10 years without maintenance. He didn't finish the thought. Rebecca understood the implication. Whatever had been done to her brain was degrading. Unpredictably, another problem for another day. Right now she needed to find the others before the hunters did. Outside Golden Pines, Rebecca checked her burner phone. A message from Jack. "Found something. Call ASAP." As she drove away, a black SUV pulled into the retirement community's parking lot. The two men inside didn't look like they were visiting their grandparents. The hunt was closing in. Rebecca drove to an abandoned gas station 5 miles down the road before calling Jack. No cameras, no witnesses, just an empty building with faded signs advertising cigarettes and soda brands that hadn't existed for years. "What did you find?" she asked as soon as he answered. "I think I found Cypher," Jack replied, his voice tense. "A woman named Valerie Chu lives in Portland under the name Diane Wu, works as a pharmacy technician. How sure are you?" Everything fits. Former intelligence background that suddenly goes blank 10 years ago. New identity established around the same time. And I found a medical report from a clinic visit last year, where a nurse noted an unusual tattoo on her inner forearm. Rebecca's grip tightened on the phone. "We need to warn her." "Already tried. No answer at home or work. Her neighbor said she hasn't seen her since yesterday." A knot formed in Rebecca's stomach. Too late? Maybe not. Police reports don't show any incidents at her address. No unidentified bodies matching her description. She might have spotted them coming and run, Rebecca said, hope mixing with urgency in her voice. "Does she have family? Friends? Anywhere she might go to ground?" "Working on it." "What about you? Learn anything useful?" Rebecca quickly relayed her conversation with Walter, including the information about Thomas Harding's death and the missing Blackbriar materials. "Robert Chen," Jack repeated thoughtfully. "I've heard that name. He's got a reputation as a straight shooter. No political games. Can we trust him?" "In my experience, FBI counterintelligence tends to play by the book. If he's investigating officially, he might have resources we don't." Rebecca considered this. "I'll reach out to him. But first, what about Echo? Any leads?" "Nothing solid yet. My team is still looking." Jack paused. "There's something else. I've been monitoring police frequencies and intelligence chatter. There's an alert out for a Lily Parker, wanted for questioning in connection with a national security matter." Rebecca wasn't surprised. "They're moving faster than I expected. I need a safe place to regroup. Somewhere off the grid. I've got a hunting cabin in the mountains. No one knows about it except me. Not even on paper. I bought it with cash from the original owner 15 years ago." Rebecca hesitated. Trusting someone else's safe house went against every instinct she had. But her options were limited and time was running out. "Text the coordinates," she finally said. "I'll head there now." After ending the call, Rebecca drove to a shopping mall in the next town. She abandoned her car in the crowded parking lot and called a rideshare service using a burner account. 2 transfers later, she walked the last 3 miles to a small motel that accepted cash and didn't ask questions. In her room, she spread out everything she had, notes from Walter, the phone number for Robert Chen, her limited cash and supplies. She needed to think clearly, strategically. The hunters had resources, connections, and a head start. But Rebecca had something they didn't. She knew exactly what they were after. She dialed the number Walter had given her, using the burner phone. "Chen," answered a clipped voice. "This is Rebecca Harlow," she said, using her original name. "I understand you're investigating Thomas Harding and Blackbriar." A long pause. "Where did you get this number?" "Walter Klein, former Deputy Director of Operations, CIA." Another pause. "Hold for secure verification." Rebecca waited as clicks and whirs indicated her call was being routed through encryption protocols. Finally, Chen returned. "Speak quickly. This line is secure but not indefinitely. I was part of Blackbriar. Codename Whisper. Someone is hunting down former operatives in order of recruitment. 3 are confirmed dead. 2 more, Cypher and Echo, are in immediate danger. As am I. Why come to me?" Chen asked, his voice neutral. "Walter said you're investigating your father's work, the memory tech that Blackbriar was built on." "My father was forced to develop technology that was weaponized against his will," Chen said, an edge of controlled anger in his voice. "I've spent years trying to uncover the truth." "Well, now the truth is trying to bury itself along with everyone who knows about it," Rebecca replied. "Including me. What do you want from the FBI?" "Protection for the remaining operatives, and help finding whoever is behind the killings." Chen was quiet for a moment. "I can offer limited protection. My investigation isn't officially sanctioned, but I can share what I know." He paused. Harding's private storage facility contained more than UST research. It had detailed files on all Blackbriar operatives. Your real identities, your neural mapping, everything. Rebecca felt cold. And those files are missing? Some of them. Specifically, all files related to the neural modification technology and the operatives who received it. Who would have access? Who knew about the storage facility? That's what I've been trying to determine. So far, the trail leads to a private military contractor called Nexus Security Solutions. They've recently received several large government contracts for advanced personnel training. Rebecca recognized the name. Their CEO is Andrew Fletcher. He was DoD intelligence before going private sector. Yes. And he was also Thomas Harding's protege. The pieces were falling into place. Fletcher was continuing Harding's work, but he needed to eliminate anyone who might recognize what he was doing. Or worse, expose it. I need to meet you, Rebecca decided. In person. Too risky. There's a leak somewhere in the bureau. Information about my investigation has been compromised twice. Then we need a secure location. Neutral ground, Rebecca thought quickly. Jack Reynolds. Former Navy SEAL, he has a cabin in the mountains. I'm heading there now. She gave Chen the coordinates Jack had sent her. I know Reynolds by reputation, Chen said. If you trust him, I'll meet you there. 24 hours. After ending the call, Rebecca rested her head in her hands. The weight of the past decade, all the running, the hiding, the looking over her shoulder, pressed down on her. And now it was all unraveling faster than she could have imagined. Her burner phone buzzed with a text from Jack. Update on Cypher. Hospital admission in Portland under Jane Doe. Gunshot wound. Stable condition. Police protection. At least Cypher Valerie was alive. And if she was under police protection, Fletcher's team couldn't get to her easily. Rebecca gathered her things and checked out of the motel. Night had fallen, making it easier to move undetected. She hired another rideshare to take her as close to the mountains as possible, then began the long hike to the coordinates Jack had provided. The cabin was exactly as he had described it. Rustic, remote, nestled among tall pines with a view of the valley below. No electricity, no running water, no technology to track. Perfect. Jack was already there, a kerosene lamp casting warm light through the windows. He opened the door before she could knock. Any trouble? He asked, ushering her inside. No, but we'll have company tomorrow. Robert Chen is meeting us here. Jack raised an eyebrow but nodded. I've got supplies for a week. Perimeter alarms are set up. If anyone approaches within half a mile, we'll know. The cabin was small but comfortable. A main room with a wood stove, a tiny kitchen area, and a single bedroom. Jack had clearly prepared for trouble. Rebecca spotted a rifle propped in the corner and what looked like body armor on a chair. Fletcher's behind it all, she told him, settling into a worn armchair. Andrew Fletcher from Nexus Security. He's continuing Harding's work. Jack's expression darkened. That tracks. Nexus has been recruiting former special forces at twice the going rate. Rumor is they're developing some kind of enhanced soldier program. Not just enhanced, controllable. Rebecca touched her tattoo unconsciously. The neural modifications, the memory tech, it was all building toward creating the perfect deniable assets. Operatives who could be programmed for missions and then have specific memories erased afterward. And Fletcher has the research now. Along with our files. He knows exactly what was done to us, probably better than we do. Rebecca leaned forward. But he's missing something. Why else would he be hunting us down? He already has the research. Jack considered this. Maybe you're the research. The long-term subjects. The only ones who've had these modifications for 10 years without maintenance. Rebecca felt a chill. He wants to know how the technology degraded, what side effects developed, which means he's not just trying to eliminate witnesses. He needs to capture at least one of you alive. Study you. The thought made Rebecca's skin crawl. To be a lab specimen, to have her mind probed and dissected. We need to draw him out, she said suddenly. Force him to make a move where we control the variables. Jack looked skeptical. How do we do that? We give him what he wants, me. Rebecca stood pacing the small cabin. We leak my location, not here, somewhere we choose. Somewhere we can set a trap. That's too dangerous. His team will be heavily armed, highly trained. So are we. Rebecca's eyes locked with his, and we'll have backup. Chen and the FBI. If Chen can be trusted. He has as much reason to want Fletcher stopped as I do. Maybe more. It was his father's research that made all this possible. They stayed up late into the night formulating a plan. It was risky, with too many variables and too many things that could go wrong. but it was the best chance they had to end this, not just for Rebecca, but for all the remaining Blackbriar operatives. Morning came with a watery sun filtering through pine branches. Rebecca stood on the cabin's small porch watching the sunrise. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a world where this ended well, where she might someday return to a normal life, or at least as normal as someone like her could ever have. The distant sound of a vehicle broke the silence. Too early to be Chen. Jack appeared beside her, rifle in hand. "Expecting anyone else?" he asked quietly. Rebecca shook her head, drawing her pistol. "Get inside. I'll cover the approach." But as the vehicle came into view, a mud-splattered pickup truck, Rebecca lowered her weapon slightly. "Wait," she said. "I know that truck." The truck stopped 50 yards from the cabin. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Average height, dark hair streaked with gray, moving with the careful precision of someone nursing an injury. "Valerie," Rebecca breathed. Cypher had found them.